Welcome to The Shoreline, brought to you by Shores and Islands, Ohio, where finding your Lake Erie love is a sure thing. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, Jill Bauer, PR Manager for Shores and Islands, Ohio. And joining me with co-hosting duties today is Megan Reynolds, Shores and Islands Social Media Manager. Hi, Megan.
Hi, Jill. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Doing well, too. Thank you.
Good. Well, I'm just glad that the sun is shining. It always makes for a brighter day, right?
Absolutely.
Well, we bring you The Shoreline every week to give you the inside scoop on what's happening here in our island and coastal communities. So, Megan, let's give our listeners an update on what's happening over on our social media platforms. And I recall a couple of weeks ago that you were telling me that we've recently hopped onto a few new social media platforms. So can you tell the listeners what those platforms are and where they can now find us?
I absolutely can. So we are now on Blue Sky, Lemon8, Red Note, Reddit, and Pinterest. We are also exploring YouTube Shorts a little bit more just from what happened over on TikTok, but you could also find us on TikTok still. So we are officially on every single social media platform that is available.
And are you active on all of those platforms? Because that seems like a lot.
It is a lot. So yes, we're not as active on the newer ones. Like we're making a little presence maybe once or twice a week. And then we're kind of building up a little bit more. So this summer with just everything that's going to be coming our way in the Shores and Islands area, you're going to see a little bit more action happening on those platforms, but we're there. So all of that fun things.
Well, and I got to be honest, I'm not super familiar with a lot of those platforms. What kind of interaction are you seeing over there? Like, are we starting to gain some followers?
We are, I would be surprised in a pleasant way to see that we have a lot of action happening on Lemon8. It's kind of right between Pinterest and Instagram, but our followers are just growing. Pinterest is a little bit slow going, but again, I kind of think we're going to see a little bit more action and followers and people checking out our pins come the summertime when they're just planning those itineraries and the visits to come out this way and hang out with us.
I am a big Pinterest user. I will say that, and I'm very familiar with that one. But yeah, some of those newer ones. Maybe I'm gonna have to check which one did you say was kind of like Pinterest? Was that Lemon8?
That was Lemon8. Yes.
Yeah, I might have to check that one out because I need some more social media in my life.
You do.
So you've also been up to a lot of video making these days. Some of the videos that you've put out there, some of them have been kind of cheeky. There have been a lot of fun featuring our team, and some have been more of the informative style. So can you talk a little bit about where you get your inspiration from and what have been some of your favorite videos that you've put out there lately, either favorite to film or just the way that they ended up turning out?
This is a great question. So yes, definitely have been exploring the fun and personality videos to highlight our team. We are all about tourism, which is fun. So kind of showcasing our personalities and giving more of a face to our brand has been really exciting. It's been, you see our participants as well, like was not expecting Larry to be a willing participant to be dragged across the carpet. So that was awesome.
That was one of my favorites.
Still laughing at that one. And then I also really liked our Women's Day series that we did. So every Sunday we spotlight a different woman that kind of broke glass ceilings and before we were even around, before we were here. And it was really cool to learn about all of these historical and powerful women. And you're going to see some of that sprinkled throughout the year with whatever month we have and whatever theme we're going to try and highlight somebody that was here before we were in our area and kind of get to know them a little bit better.
Oh, how cool is that? And I know that our visitor services managers, Brian and Angie, are both, I don't think they would mind me calling them big history nerds. Because they are just so very, very passionate about local history. And I can imagine that they probably have brought to you a lot of different local stories to share.
Absolutely. They are a wealth of knowledge.
Oh, for sure. And I think some of those videos even featured Brian, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, they have Brian or Ned, whichever one you know him as.
As Ned. Oh, yeah. So talk a little bit about Ned. Tell our listeners, what is Ned? Who is Ned?
Yes, so Ned is somebody that you see in our travel guide, and we are bringing him to life this year through Brian. So you'll see on social media Brian explaining different historical items about Shores and Islands area. We also are going to be doing Ned Talks, which are very exciting. I believe we're going to do them about once a quarter, just featuring different partners and different speakers. And you can definitely learn more and find out information about these events on our social media platforms too.
Yeah, I think one is coming up with Kimberly Kaufman, who has been a guest on this podcast in the past. She's going to be talking all about birding, and I love our little play on TED Talks. It's Ned Talks. Ned, the character Ned, is a naturalist, so it's all about parts of the region and the natural world. So we're really looking forward to that, and Megan's been having fun again putting the Ned character into some of our social media posts. So, what else do you have coming up on the horizon that our listeners might want to be looking out for on social?
Sure. Well, as always, I don't want every way so that they have to come and follow us
Of
along. But
course.
we we definitely will be promoting all of the fun events that are happening in April. We're getting ready for the biggest week of American birding, so just lots of fun events and just little tips and tricks you can find on social media, and then just building up those new platforms. So if you are on Lemonade Blue Sky, be sure to give a follow and connect with us.
Very cool. Well, listeners, you've probably gathered from our conversation and past interactions on the program with Megan that Megan is a lot of fun. But our guest today can really give Megan a run for her money in the fun department because she is the queen of puns. And I cannot wait to talk to her. Joining Megan and I today is Christine Crawford, co-owner of Beagle Bay Knotworks, located in Huron, Ohio. Lifetime boaters and sailors Randy and Christine Crawford use centuries-old knot tying techniques to cleverly transform rope and cord into nautical lifestyle items for land and sea. Christine is a native of Seville, Ohio, but spent her weekends growing up on a boat in Huron, where she and Randy now live. As a lifelong boater, knots have just always been a part of her life, but how they became more of a creative outlet is what we aim to learn a little bit more about today. Christine and Randy, married 35 years, are both members of the International Guild of Knot Tiers, North American branch, where Randy serves as secretary and Christine sits on as the membership chair. Together, they have judged the 4-H project Not Just Knots, there's another pun, for the Ohio State Fair, and they have taught knotting skills at the Maritime Museum of Sandusky, D-29 Power Squadron Conference, and for the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary. A few years ago, they took that hobby into the retail world with the Beagle Bay product line of boat and home decor, lifestyle items, and jewelry. Can't wait to learn more. Welcome to the program, Christine.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday.
Yeah.
So, Christine, you grew up boating and visiting regularly. So, did you ever think the boating style would transform your life and translate into a career?
Transform my life, absolutely. But into a career, not a chance. No. I think once you're bitten by that boating bug, that love of the water, you either love it or hate it, right? And we absolutely love it. I have loved it since I can remember. So transform my life for sure. But if you would have told me Beagle Bay would ever become what it is now, I wouldn't have ever imagined.
Yeah, I can't imagine that either. And you grew up boating, but sailing came a little bit later. You mentioned in some information that you sent me. So tell us how you and Randy later became sailors and not just boaters.
So 9/11, right, will live in everyone's memory. You know exactly where you were that day. And Randy and I were on vacation in Cape Cod.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And actually, the innkeeper where we were staying at the bed and breakfast, their daughter called. We didn't have the television on or anything. And come to find out, their daughter's boyfriend worked in the basement of Tower 2.
Oh, wow.
And he had come home. So they were called, Mom, you need to turn on the television. We're at the bed and breakfast with some other guests. And obviously that changed the tourism part of our stay over that way. All the federal attractions were closed. We had made plans to go into Boston. You couldn't go do that. So we actually ended up on a ferry and headed over to Martha's Vineyard. And we were at the yacht club there having lunch or something, breakfast, I can't remember. And a beautiful Sparkman and Stevens, an old wooden sloop, was coming through the mooring field. And it had a huge American flag trailing the stern of the boat, just barely kissing the water. And Randy and I looked at each other and said, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we sailing? And so we did. We went to the January boat show that following January with a checkbook, got really into the sailing world with Harbor North and the Huron crew over there. Randy and I both ended up with captain's licenses and taught sailing for a number of years. And of course, you're tying a lot of knots on sailboats.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So can you tell us, just in boating in general, why is knowing how to tie knots important?
For obvious reasons, right? You tie the boat up to the dock, for example. But part of the critical piece of knot tying, especially in the practical knots, you've all heard the adage, if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot. And we laugh about that. And you've seen pictures of, the cleat with 17 turns around the horn and the whole bit. But then you get into a situation, a weather situation, or God forbid, an emergency where you need to untie that knot. So a real live knot not only ties and holds secure, but it can easily be untied. So it's just as important to be able to undo it as to tie it, and on the practical side in particular. So that's one of the big things where when we travel and go to some of the clubs or the conferences, we really drill down on 6, I'd say, very practical, basic, but easily misunderstood nautical knots, maritime knots. And then the fancy work, the rest is just for fun, even though they all have a story. But the fancy work we play with and turn it into all kinds of stuff.
Nice. And tying can be beautiful as well. And the Beagle Bay dream started with a sailor's bracelet. Can you tell our listeners how that bracelet turned into a thriving business?
Sure. So I'm going to date myself. So a child of the 80s, a product of the 80s, we would always end up with one of those plain white cotton, looked braided cotton bracelets on your wrist. And I can remember grabbing mine at Cedar Point every summer. And you put it on, it didn't come off. It would shrink. It would get dirty. It would get really nasty. And then the night before I went back to school, I would cut that thing off.
You'd have to get it cut off.
You'd have to get it cut off. Remember? Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the old sailor's bracelet. And then the tan line was just as important as the bracelet had been. Everybody who was walking around with that tan line. And so when Rainey and I started seeing each other, he did not grow up boating. And so I would tell him about this bracelet. And we're into sailing by then. And so he tied one for me that I could take off. It had an actual shackle clasp, which we make that variety now. And the girls over at the club saw it. So then he went from 1 to tying 6 more. And then we tied it in a couple different colors. And then we were playing with some hitching around a helm. And what if I do this with this knot? And I can make a coaster out of this. And so I can distinctly remember Randy telling me that he wanted to go to a craft show. And I said, what in the world do you want to go to a craft show for? And he reminds me that I said that pretty regularly. And so that first show, it was an 8-foot table. Oh gosh, we had maybe 25 bracelets, a couple mats, probably some coasters. And it was a great day. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're onto something with this. And so it just keeps evolving. And back then we would dye the cord to get the custom colors. And we've since graduated to the point, the volume, and we have a direct relationship with our mill. So they actually, with our recipes, dye our colors, and we buy it pallets of cord get delivered. I think like 2,500 pounds at a visit. So it's really something.
That is amazing. Wow. So when and why did you decide to open your brick and mortar retail store?
So in my real life, I am actually an insurance agent, and I had my eye on the building at the corner of Main Street and Route 6 in Huron for a long time as a great spot for the office. The visibility, I like the character of the old building. We are the stewards of 2 pre-urban renewal buildings. And what I mean by that is, short version is urban renewal came to the United States in the 70s, and the federal government had funding to deconstruct and reconstruct downtowns. Very controversial at the time. Huron eventually participated in that, and we ended up with a half of a downtown. So there are 8 surviving buildings from that era. And like I said, we are the stewards of 2 of those. And I wanted that corner for the agency. And it's a huge space, and we didn't need all the room. And Beagle Bay was in my office room at the house. And so I had stacks of rope and bins of product for us to go from market to market to market. So we made the decision to take that downtown. Well, if it was going to be downtown, why don't we go ahead and put some of it out? And not a lot of retail options for Huron. We hear regularly, where are the shops in Huron? So we thought, well, maybe we're enough that at least it gives somebody something to come look at. And then we added more product and brought in some maker friends to put their merchandise in the shop. And now we're purchasing some other lake items. Just added sweatshirts, lake life sweatshirts and things like that this year. It's a second vein to Beagle Bay. So not only are we still traveling to pop-up markets, but the brick and mortar is an attraction. And that part was a surprise for us too, that our following is wide enough that people are trying to come find us. So we kind of think of ourselves as kind of the Great Lakes Knot ambassadors at this point.
Well, not only that, you mentioned some of the other makers that you have their products in your store. Can you tell us a little bit more about all the different kinds of things that you sell there? Because you really are a great place to pick up a souvenir from your Shores and Islands vacation.
Oh, well, thank you for asking about them. We are so blessed, and this is probably one of my favorite parts of the brick and mortar side is the incredible creatives that we've brought in with us. We have a retired teacher who makes sea glass note cards, and she will meticulously create these little vignettes on the front of the cards. We actually had to talk her into putting the cards in the shop. She didn't think they were good enough. Oh, and what a wonderful person, Sally Green, and they're adorable, and we sell out. She'll bring us a dozen and they're gone. She'll bring us a dozen and they're gone. So just a wonderful creative there. Retired library director in Huron. Her second vocation, I'll call it, is a mosaic art glass. And she makes these incredible sun catchers, and at Christmas time, her holiday trees. And Ann Hinton is her name, and she will travel to markets and things. So she keeps a picture frame display in the shop. We've got a beach glass jeweler, Crystal Moon Designs, Chris Keener. She is local. Mitawanga, I believe, is where Chris is. And she's a metalsmith by trade and does incredible things with beach glass and kind of a collaborative effort because her and her husband are sailors as well. I think it was last year. She asked us to tie as many little tiny knots as we could. And we're like, what in the world are you doing? And so we took the smallest cord that we have and we tied smaller than the size of your pinky fingernail. And she was going to a metal casting class. And so she took our little Ziploc bag of knots, and she cast all these little tiny reef knots. She took some other ones too, but they created links. And she made a reef knot bracelet, I'll call it square knots, as links, and she cast it in silver. And so she's taken the knotting in a great collaboration into the metalsmith side, and the bracelets are just amazing. She gave us one as a thank you for providing the knots, and I just love it. So another super creative graphic design, cottage designs. Jen Kilbury makes exclusively for us Huron note cards, and they include our Huron Lighthouse, blue herons, ice cream, beach views from Nickel Plate Beach over to the lighthouse with seagulls and bicycles. Just so unique, so adorable. Big hit for being, in our gorgeous lakefront community. And you recognize immediately when you look at these note cards, the views. Those are just a few examples of some of our local makers that we've brought in, and we so enjoy working with those guys.
And besides the sailor bracelet, what else are you making out of cord there that you sell? You mentioned mats and coasters and things like that. What else can you make out of rope?
Oh my gosh, we continue to amaze ourselves. Rady just came up with something the other day. He tied out of a 3/8-inch rope. So not super thick stuff, but thicker than a bracelet cord. And it's called an expanded Turk's head, and it was stiff enough that it could stand up by itself. So if you can envision a wine bottle holder. So kind of a coaster on the bottom, a piece of what we're using, a plastic wood, and then this column of Turk's head knot, tall enough it goes up about a third of the way up a bottle. And so it's this great new little product out of just us walking around it in the shop for a while. It's like, well, would a wine bottle fit in that? And I'm seriously, this is how it happens, I swear. And so, yes, he tied 2 of those. We made 2 of those. We had them on display Saturday. I haven't had a chance to do an Instagram post about it. I haven't had a time to put it on the website, nothing. And we sold them both on Saturday.
I guess Randy needs to get back to work then.
So here we go, right? Here we go. So we're so blessed in this area that we come up with these ideas and people appreciate it and love it. And some days we just look at each other and just smile. Some boat and home decor stuff. Monkey fists, which back in the day, so think of you've all seen them, the ball of rope. Sometimes it's 4 rows of rope. Sometimes it's 5 rows. Can be as small as on a keychain, palm size, all the way up to, imagine that same knot tied with like inch wide cord. So, good 6 inches across. And we've turned that into a doorstop. The original use would have been back mariner days, wooden ship days. And you always have to remember with some of our merchandise, it's life before plastic. So before synthetics were around, they used either, hemp, which manila is abaco banana tree fiber, or natural cotton rope. And they would tie this ball, this monkey fist, at the end of a rope and put a lead cannonball in the middle, a lead shot. And it gave it weight, so they could throw it. So it was actually a heaving knot. So they could throw that up into the rigging while they were, raising sails. They could throw it boat to shore, as opposed to, and I'm guilty. I've gone to throw, a dock line and it doesn't go well. so
it's got to have some weight behind it to get that momentum.
Exactly. They were so ingenious, necessity out of necessity. And so really modern technology, we've got folks that are docking boats with joysticks and they make it look effortless now. So not necessarily as practical as it once was. So we've taken it and turned it into decorative. And so cool looking doorstop. We've also got one that you can actually hang from the doorknob, that we tie the monkey fist just thick enough that if you have a door that swings hard into the wall, where the knob would put that nice little kiss in the drywall, this stops it. It's a little knob fender.
Oh,
little knob bumper. Yeah.
And you make wreaths as well. I remember at Christmas time there was a whole knot wreath.
We do. We like to use manila for that brownish rope, but we do make it out of cotton as well. They weigh a little less than 7 pounds. It's one continuous piece of rope. We have folks that use them indoors or out. They will weather outdoors beautifully. Think of brunette hair, gets like a golden brown. Beautiful. And we have a lot of fun with those. We can put a color accent in. We wire the accessories on so that folks can change them for the season, so they'll last a long time. Folks are also using our fenders. So again, kind of going back to that life before plastic, a dock circle, a round fender, and cord with rope, and they're turning that into a wreath. So just nautical, and we get the best ideas from our customers, I swear.
Oh, I bet.
And, if they like this, but could we add this knot to it, and could you make it a little bigger, and it becomes, the fender becomes a wreath.
I just love where all your ideas come from. Last year, Christine, you guys were the recipient of a Shores and Islands, Ohio Destination Development Grant, which assisted in the creation of a lovely piece of art that's in your landscape next to your building. Can you talk a little bit about that project and how that has brought people in as well?
Absolutely. So we, again, kind of circling back to being good stewards of that particular parcel, it is the intersection of Main Street and Route 6, which happens to be along the Lake Erie Circle Tour. In fact, there's one of those signs literally outside our office window. And so we do benefit from that tourism route. So not only is it a key intersection in Huron-Fort's residents, but we do get a lot of folks, pardon the old pun, just passing through. if you're stopped at that traffic light, why don't we give them something to look at? And so the postcard art that started to spring up and all the really cool public art projects throughout the Shores and Islands region, Huron didn't have that pop yet. We didn't get that bug yet. And so that intersection being what we and actually the city planners see as a critical intersection was a good spot to try to do something like that. So we got the name from Vermilion, actually. They had a really intensive postcard art project. And over at the Main Street Association, they were nice enough to share that artist's name with us, Mike Sekletar. And we reached out to him and told him our idea and where our location was, and that we were going for a Shores and Islands Destination Development Grant. And he was on board right away. We told him some of the elements that we would like to see. We kind of like that vintage look, so sunset or sunrise, depending on how you like to view your colorscape in the skies. And our Huron Lighthouse, of course. I swear that the blue heron is my spirit bird, so I wanted a blue heron on there. It's got a rope border. What a surprise. And a couple other cool elements. And he went to town. And Barnes Nursery, Huron Landscaping, were thrilled to be a part of the project, too. We tried to keep it as local as we could and finish that north end of the building. It's a beautiful piece. It came out, couldn't have come out any better. I am absolutely in love with it. We get comments on it. We've had some stickers made that you can purchase in the store to take that home with you if you like that mural. And the way the landscaping is situated, it's really easy to take a selfie with it. You can stand on the sidewalk, or if you wanted to get closer, but it's a great height for that. And literally, we watch people stopped at the traffic light, touching the glass in the window, looking pointing at the elements of the mural. It's a beautiful addition. We're really happy with it. The grant process was so simple. You guys make that so easy for us. And we were just so excited. And I don't know that could have all happened without the grant, because we private investment, you got to do what you can when you can. And that doubled the size of that project for us because we were fortunate enough to be a recipient of the grant.
That's really nice. And I love that sticker idea. That's so cool to be able to take it with you.
Absolutely. That nice heavy vinyl, everybody's decorating their travel mugs, their Yetis.
Well, you are not only a great ambassador for the entire Shores and Islands, Ohio region, but you're also a huge cheerleader for the city of Huron in particular and the area where your store is located. Can you tell us a little bit about what makes Huron special and what kind of things are happening in the business region?
Oh, absolutely. There is a spark. Without a doubt, we like to think that we're a part of that spark. We need to fan it, though. We've got to keep fanning that fire and bring it back. We've had multiple small businesses that want to invest their time and their energies in our Main Street. My hat is off to the city. They did a Main Street corridor study, not last year, not in 24, I believe it was in 2023, and identified our block as the retail/service stretch of Main. They have designated some funds for some road resurfacing, new curbs, new sidewalks. When we redid our building, we brought street trees back. And I've got an old picture of our building when it was the Thomas Market, the Thomas grocery store. So probably like early 50s, 1950s. And the building was white back then with black trim and street trees out front, big trees. So when we had the opportunity to do the sidewalks, we went ahead and had planter boxes put back in. And unfortunately, to save some real damage to the building, we did have to cut down a tree when we initially took ownership of the building. But we have since planted 3 in its place. So we're hoping that is enough for those who weren't real happy with us about that big tree.
We're good stewards.
We're trying. Oh my gosh, we're trying. That refresh of our stretch of Main is encouraging people to maybe climb out on that limb and try their hand at business. We've got When Pigs Fly by the Lake right next door in the building with us, which is a very cool retail space. New brand new. She just opened. We just got the house next door done. And Annie's Closet is a very cool, oh my goodness, you guys. It is the girliest space I've been in probably 35 years.
Oh, yeah, this is the tea room, right?
Yes, it is a tea room and boutique. Yes, Annie is the owner's daughter, and so it's named after her. And just these beautiful pink flowers, and you just walk in and you're instantly happy. What she has done inside the space is remarkable. And adult speaking, Randy and I don't have children, so, but we do have nieces. But adult, I mean, what a great spot for like a bridal shower or a baby shower, or take the little girls in for tea. And there's some things you can buy and enjoy sweets, and such a girly space. I'm so excited for her.
Megan, does that sound appealing to you? As that feels like right up your alley.
It does. Like,
oh, you got to come see it. You got to come see it. Give yourself more than a half hour. It's adorable. But in the same building then, so the south side of the duplex is a Prohibition era barber. So it doesn't get much more guy space than the barber shop, than the girly space of the tea room. There's a collision right there. You know, it's fantastic. And what these young entrepreneurs are doing is so heartwarming. I'm so excited for both of these businesses. Hello Gorgeous, the beauty salon at the foot of our block, then she's got a pop-up in their great little boutique. Of course, Lucky Stone Promotions and Gifts, your spirit wear headquarters. I'll tell you, the Haggies have been going at it since before we got to Main Street. And what they've done with their building, of course, great places to snack and sip. We're getting much more walkability when they redid the Route 6 project, so that, you know, crossing that path and it's not as intimidating, you know, as crossing a 4-lane highway. We've got the bike lanes for you to access one end of town to the other. Of course, staple, Pied Piper opened a couple weeks ago for the season, our first sign of summer, the ice cream spot, Gathering Grounds, the coffee shop with her great study space in the back. There is a lot popping on Main Street in Huron, and it is not the large scale downtown geographically, say as Sandusky or even Vermilion, really, but you can easily spend an afternoon. You guys mentioned biggest week in American birding coming up. You know, our pier, our wildlife out there at the pier. Randy and I went for a walk the other morning, and 3 deer came out of the spill site, and occasionally we'll see a couple eagles and the herons and the gulls. I believe they had a warbler sighting last year during birding season, and a couple other rare birds that, with that interior water of the spill site, it's protected for some of the migrating flocks that come through. We have seen pelicans in the past. So the lighthouse, the nature, and then, of course, down at the foot of the pier, you've got a couple great stops for an outdoor or a rooftop beverage at the fish house and pier pub. And there's just so much going on. And it's kind of sleepy. You know, when you're driving through, you're so enamored with our mural that you forget to look left and right on Main Street.
I love it.
But you got, you know, hang a right or hang a left and just check out what's starting to pop, because it's kind of a secret, and we need to get the secret out and encourage people to park the car, get out, take a look, see some really unique things that you're not going to find everywhere else.
Well, and Huron really is such a lovely community, and there's so much going on, and it's so nice to hear business owners like yourself, you know, championing all that there is to see and do there. And, you know, just down the street, of course, you've got the Huron Boat Basin as well, with all kinds of events going on throughout the summer, and farmers markets and festivals and things like that. So many reasons to visit Huron, you know, really year round. So finally, Christine, for anyone who may be interested in now coming and checking Huron out and they want to visit your store, can you tell us your address, your hours of operation, and any special events that you guys might be planning that are coming up?
Oh, I'm happy to. Absolutely. So we are, like I said, right at that intersection of Main Street and Route 6, but the actual address is 507 Main. And normal shop hours are Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 10 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. And then Saturday is a short day from 10 to 2. And we are pretty active. You guys were talking about social media earlier in the podcast, and I got a couple things written down here I need to go check out.
Some new platforms to look into thanks to Megan.
Yep, I'm learning as I'm chatting away here. Our Instagram and Facebook, really, we try to do a good job of letting everybody know what's going on and where we're going to be, because Beagle Bay really is still committed to the pop-up market. And so we go off-site quite a bit. So that will change our Saturday hours, different weekends in the summertime. And coming up soon, I mean, it is boating season. We are getting ready to kick off with the Catawba Island Boat Show put on by Ohio Marine Trades over there at the CIC Club. And that is the 25th through the 27th.
You guys will be there?
We will be there. They invite us over to do knot demonstrations. We're going to have that cleat hitch board out. We opened the podcast talking about that practical knotting. So some fancy work will be there, but then we're going to be teaching some practical boating knots. And we've got a kids interactive that we just rolled out at the January Progressive Boat Show in Cleveland. So the littles can stop by and learn to tie a little mayfly. And it can be on a keyring, so it can go on their backpacks. And we do that as a give back. There's no charge for that. We want to keep the kids interested. We need that next generation of knot tire, these hand skills, these fiber arts. And so we like to try to do our part to spark an interest for the next generation to come up. And then we roll right into full-time summer. The Huron Lakefront Market is June the 7th. Another of our big favorite markets is the Vermilion Beach Market over at Sherrod Park the first weekend in August. We head to the islands in September for Art in the Park over at Put-in Bay. Oh, I'm missing a bunch, but we have so much fun going out into the outdoor market season. It will impact our weekend hours in the shop, so just tune into our socials and we'll try to do a good job of letting folks know where we're at.
And then where can people go to find more stuff online with Beagle Bay Knotworks?
We made it as easy as we could, Megan. It is BeagleBayKnotworks.com. It's a lot to type, but it'll get you right to us.
Well, that's awesome, Christine. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today and sharing your love of Huron and the region. Hopefully people will come visit you.
Well, thanks so much for having us and letting us chit-chat for a bit. We are so blessed to be a part of the Shores and Island region, and most specifically the Huron community, that anything we can do and anytime we get a chance to reach out and tell people about our little hidden gem, we'll take it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, great. Thank you. Special thanks to Christine Crawford from Beagle Bay Knotworks for joining us today. And thanks, as always, to my buddy Megan for being a fantastic contributor as well. Make sure you're following all of those social media platforms for more fun with Megan. And thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a minute of the action here in Shores and Islands, Ohio. You can also find more information, including past episodes of this podcast, online at shoresandislands.com. And we will see you next time on The Shoreline.